Oh, it is getting to be some pretty cold weather, really nasty. Every morning now when I wake up and look outside, it's all frosty and frozen out, which is pretty typical for the wintertime here in the Pacific Northwest. Typically we don't get down to freezing temperatures, not in our area, but we definitely have some very cold rains, and right now it is pretty miserable outside. Um, Interesting thing, like when we have the weather turn to this kind of a foul condition, it's amazing on how much pellets we sell. We sell wood burning pellets for heating your home, and it is just incredible how many pallets of pellets we will go through in a single day when the weather snap. Boom, man! Everybody comes in looking for their pellets, and you could literally station a guy right there at the pallets of them and just load customers all day with bags of pellets. It's pretty fun to watch when the cold snap happens, but not a lot of business coming in, and that is not a good sign, especially when it comes to the retail. When you look out there and you hear about Black Friday sales were off record charts or something, which I guess turned out to not be quite the numbers that everybody was saying that they were. But I work retail for a living, and I can tell you it is really slow when it comes to retail sales. Even the contractor sales have dropped off dramatically, which we knew that from the home builders. But in my particular area, I'm from a very old town. I mean, Astoria was founded 200 years ago. And the houses here are, they date back to the 1800s. So there's a lot of remodel and maintenance that needs to be done to a lot of the homes around here, but even that has dropped off dramatically as people are postponing any kind of major repairs or even upgrades to their house. They seem to be backing off on a lot of that stuff. Just don't have as much foot traffic coming in. And anyway, that's from some of the stuff that I've been experiencing. Want to leave in the description for you guys a link to the Federal Reserve speech that came out, I think, yesterday. This is from Lael Brainerd. And what is the title of this one? What we can learn from the pandemic and the war about supply shocks, inflation, and monetary policy. Now, of course, these speeches are quite long and kind of boring, so I'm not going to read the whole thing to you guys because, well, you can go read it yourself, and I don't know if you really just want to sit around and hear me stutter through a speech. But anyway, there's one line in here. This is the one that really caught my attention. And it's really funny because the Federal Reserve is trying to get some information out there to, not like secret information, but they don't necessarily want everybody to know or understand what this particular statement's going to be about. And so unless you're really in the know, it's just going to be confusing as hell. It's going to be the Fed speak, right? And this is something that Alan Greenspan was a master of. I mean, he would speak and confuse the hell out of everybody, including the people at the Federal Reserve. In fact, he even said one time, if you understood what I said, then you probably misunderstood me. Something like of that nature. That wasn't exactly what he said, but it was something along that. That if you understood what he said, then you missed it. You didn't understand what he said. But anyway, this is what Lael had to say inside of this speech. Let me see if I can read this. It's getting kind of dark. It says, even when each individual supply shock fades over time and behaves like temporary shock on its own, a drawn-out sequence of adverse supply shocks that has the cumulative effect of constraining potential output for an extended period is likely to call for monetary policy tightening to restore balance between demand and supply. Now, it is so funny how they decide to word this stuff, because they're doing it on purpose to be confusing, right? They don't want you to understand it if you read this. They only want, the bankers and the elitist and the ones who are in the know to know, right? They want all the rest of us to just completely miss what it was that she was trying to say. But I'm going to try and read it again here for you guys. It says, even when each individual supply shock fades over time and behaves like temporary shocks on its own, a drawn-out sequence of adverse supply shocks that has cumulative effect of constraining potential output for an extended period is likely to call for monetary policy tightening to restore balance between demand and supply. Now, when I read that, And, it's just like, what the hell is she trying to say here? What I get out of that is that because of the supply chain shocks and there was a lack of availability of stuff going through the system, that has brought supply down to here, but demand is way up here because people still have plenty of money to spend. So what they're going to do is bring that demand down to the available supply that's out there. Now, what they're hoping for is to not actually really have to bring that demand down. What I'm thinking that they're hoping for is that the supply will actually meet the demand and take care of the inflationary problem. Because ultimately, in order to bring the demand down, you have to cause a lot of pain, unemployment. That's the main thing that they are going to be pushing for in order to bring the demand down to meet the available supply that is out there. So now that we know that the supply is starting to open up and the economy is starting to free again, and other than things like, the train issue and trucking issue and all the other stuff, I mean, that is all going to find its equilibrium at some point. And that's exactly what they are saying. That the equilibrium is probably going to have the supply at a lesser than what the demand is right now. And that demand is going to have to come down, and that's going to be from unemployment. I mean, that's the way I see it anyway. We could go through and read a bunch of more of the speech, but I don't think there's really any point to it. I think that particular line was what the whole speech was gearing towards. So, anyhow, what can we expect going into the future is I expect the Federal Reserve to maintain elevated interest rates for a significant amount of time. Now, here's something that I thought was pretty interesting. As somebody said in the comment earlier on the video that I put out, saying that you something about like, you don't take this inflation thing into consideration or something while everybody else is suffering in pain. You're not. All right. Now, I know if inflation is painful, believe me, I used to live paycheck to paycheck my entire life, and any uptick in any kind of bill was devastating. I understand how that works when you are absolutely dead broke and inflation starts to kick in. Now, what I am trying to say is that you don't see people jumping off of bridges because of the inflation. Okay? You don't see people like in the streets crying their eyes out how they lost their entire pension or their entire retirement because of inflation. Like, you don't see that going on out there. There's people who are bitching about it. There's people who are saying, hey, man, this is really uncomfortable. I don't like all this inflation and how much I have to pay and all this, all this issues that are going on. But nobody is, like, committing suicide over it, right? I mean, there might be a couple of, lost souls out there who are doing it. But for the most part, most people just find it annoying, a nuisance, an uncomfortable situation. When deflation kicks in, when the recession kicks in and asset prices start to fall and everything is failing and unemployment is shooting through the roof, then people start jumping off of buildings and stuff. And so, you see where like the real pain starts to kick in when you have a deflationary scenario, not the inflationary one. I mean, yeah, inflation sucks. Deflation is deadly, right? I mean, that's the truth of the matter when it comes to it. So, right now, we don't really have the major fear of inflation coming. I mean, I don't see that coming. Not with the Federal Reserve unwinding their balance sheet and keeping interest rates elevated. It's only a matter of time before you start seeing the inflation numbers coming down, and what you're really going to start seeing is the unemployment numbers start to rise. When you start seeing people crying, when you start seeing people like, complaining about how they lost everything that they have, that's the deflationary pain that the Federal Reserve will then pivot on. Okay? That's what they're looking for, to pivot. Until then, they're not going to pivot. And I don't care how like uncomfortable and, crappy situation the inflationary one is, it ain't going to be nothing compared to what a deflationary spiral is going to feel like. All right. As somebody said, this is the recession of the unemployed. Yeah. I mean, it's amazing that we have actually been able to have like downturns in economic activity and growth, but not have the unemployment tick up. And this is like, I think this is a very unique situation. I don't know if there's any time in history that we have quite had it like this, where you have the economic activity obviously heading towards a downturn recession, but at the same time, the unemployment is staying low and that there's still a hot labor market, like a tight jobs market. Very like unusual. I guess this is one for the history books, right? I mean, all this stuff is. Everything that comes from this is not anything that could ever have been like really predicted in a sense that from like 20 years ago. I mean, right now, the discussion over cryptocurrencies and trying to regulate it due to the failing exchanges and stuff like that happening out there. I mean, these were discussions that never would have happened 20 years ago. Love it. Caught the beginning of your live. Hey, right on, Matthew. Thank you for being here, brother. I really appreciate it. My work isn't hiring more or taking on temps at this time, but there is work. They are begging people to take overtime. I'm in shipping business. What are others experiencing? Well, that's funny because I'm also somewhat in the shipping business. I mean, like I just run my own local deliveries and I take deliveries from vendors and stuff. But one of the things that I'm starting to find, and if you look at the video I put out earlier today, there's links in there, a bunch of them, to a bunch of freight companies, trucking companies that are failing left and right now. You're finding them all over the country that are starting to call it quits and going out of business. And now the main reason for this is because they overexpanded during the pandemic. That was the problem. And I said it was going to happen. I mean, I said this is the same thing that happened throughout a lot of the industries out there. When you have such high demand for something and the availability is just simply not there, or that, the foreign supply doesn't come in, so the domestic manufacturing ramps up. Well, eventually what ends up happening is that the supply comes from the foreign production or from wherever, and then the domestic manufacturers are just too expensive to purchase from. And so what do you end up having is those domestic manufacturers go out of business. It's the same thing that's going to happen, that happened in the masks, is going to happen with semiconductors. It's going to happen with everything that we are trying to bring back to domestic manufacturing again, unless it gets subsidized by the government, right? Or you put a bunch of tariffs on the, on the new stuff coming in. There's no way to be like, to have the free market go and work this for you. That's the easiest way to have products brought to the people, is to let the free market do it. But you can't right now because, right, we have this global supply breakdown, we have this domestic chip shortage, and we have a defense, for defensive purposes, we need to have our own supply of them, which basically means that we need to produce chips for no profit. Like we don't have like a non-profitable business we need to maintain. Right? Does that make sense? I mean, I understand like the purpose behind it, but from a business point of view, is that something you want to invest in? Like, you're going to invest in a company that would never be profitable unless you had the government subsidizing it. I mean, I guess for a while that might be something you want to do, but that's not any kind of long-term, like, viable business. All right. What deflationary spiral? Ha ha ha. Okay. So you do understand the definition of inflation is the expansion of money and credit, right? So what's deflation? It would be the destruction of money and credit. How many mortgages are being written right now? How many car loans are being written right now? How many people are across the world wanting to take out dollar-denominated debt? How much debt is being issued by the U.S. government? How much debt is the Federal Reserve looking to buy right now? Think about this. This is shrinking of debt, right? The shrinking of debt is deflation. The prices are the symptom of that. So when you have inflation, what happened was you had an expansion of money and credit. And then you had the expectation that there was going to be problems coming into the future, and then the people started behaving in a fashion that caused that inflation to take place. Deflation is a much different story. Try to go get the dollars and you just simply can't find them. There is more debt than there is dollars out there, and they're taking the dollars out of the system right now. What do you think that's eventually going to do? All right? Some people are going to start feeling some pain. That is going to be a deflationary scenario that they are not anticipating because everybody is so locked in on inflation. All right? And it's happening right now. I mean, the Federal Reserve is unwinding their balance sheet. Just give it time and it'll happen. Thank you very much, Chen MD411 for the $1.99. Can the Fed stop the deflationary spiral? Well, here's the thing. If you go and read Federal Reserve speech from John Williams, the monetary policy for a low neutral interest rate world. In fact, I might even have it in here somewhere if I look deep enough. Got a bunch of papers in here. Anyway, if you go and you read that speech, monetary policy for a low neutral interest rate world, if you read in that speech, you will find one of the comments that he puts in there is that the surprising problem the Federal Reserve is facing is a constant stream of battling a constant stream of deflation, right? It's the problem was deflation, not inflation. And now the major problem from deflationary scenario is that we have low interest rate, a low neutral interest rate, which basically puts us near zero, right? Now the Fed funds, this gets really confusing on stuff, but the Fed funds rate, right? Typically that would be much higher than it is today, right? We have it today at like what, 3.75 to 4, something like that. Now, typically, like if you go back into the 80s, that would have been up in the teens somewhere, right? So when you think about like the low Federal Reserve interest rate, right, the Fed funds rate being near zero, and then you have a very low neutral interest rate for the economy. Okay, so now these are two different things that you really have to think about. A neutral interest rate is when the Federal Reserve is neither accommodating nor restricting the economy. They're neutral, right? They're right in the middle of that, like the sweet spot. And anytime they go over that, they're going to start restricting the economy. Anything that's under that is going to be supporting the economy. So now this Fed funds rate, when you have that at like 1.25%, and that's the neutral rate, anywhere from 1.25% to 2.5%. Nobody knows exactly where neutral is. A lot of people saying that it was down near zero. Many economists were saying it's 2.5%, right? That's where like the common like narrative is saying neutral interest rate is somewhere around that 2.5% mark. The only problem with that is that interest rates at that low do not provide a return on capital investment. Now, this is the important part of all this. It's because a return on capital investment is really what's going to be stimulating the economy, is what's going to get money velocity moving again. When you have low neutral or a low interest rate world, what you have is a low return on capital investment or even a negative return on capital investment. That means that you are going to slow the economy down. There's going to be a slower money velocity, less transactions. Everything about the economy slows down when you have a low neutral or a low interest rate or a low neutral rate world. And the Federal Reserve knew this. They knew that like having these low rates is not going to be an effective tool. You can stimulate the economy, you can throw a bunch of money out there, and it's going to do a great job for getting people to go out there and spend money for just a little bit, but the inflation expectation was still anchored really low, and there wasn't a whole lot of people who were going to be worried about like spending their money now and in concern about what prices were going to be into the future. Nobody had that issue prior to the pandemic. So they knew back then, it was just like, hey, we got an issue. We got low neutral interest rate. We have an inflation expectation that is anchored too low, right? And we're fighting the stream of deflation. No matter what we do, we can't really seem to get the inflation's, expectation up to that 2% that they were shooting for. And so back in 2018, when they wrote that speech, he even put in that speech that they should move towards an average inflation rate as opposed to an inflation target. I mean, all the stuff that we are experiencing right now within the Federal Reserve's like monetary policy and conditions was stated in that speech is something they needed, right? So now here we are. We got this Federal Reserve moving interest rates way beyond neutral, right? I mean, neutral was at 2.5%. They're now at 3.75 to 4. But we also have to look back, like how far, like if we could take it back 6 months to a year, okay? And we think about it there, where was the Fed funds rate then? Because the Fed funds rate has a lag to it, 6 months to a year. So even though the Fed funds rate's at 3.75 to 4 right now, that's not what the economy is feeling. What the economy is feeling, what the Fed funds rate was 6 months to a year ago, which is somewhere around neutral. So what you are feeling in the economy right now is neutral, is a neutral Federal Reserve. Now, give it a little bit of time, and those lifting of interest rates that they had already previously done will start impacting the economy, and that's coming. So from this point on, get ready for the pain, because from this point, the Fed's funds rate will be a restrictive economy. At the same time, they're pulling out money through the unwinding of the balance sheet. The stuff takes time. I mean, they lifted the Fed funds rate, but there's still inflation out there. Yeah, it's because it hasn't had time to get into the system yet, And I mean, even think about like the products that you're going to buy out there. A lot of them got the price increase due to the shipping costs that went into it. Well, shipping is dropping dramatically. Well, in order for those products to have that lesser shipping cost incorporated into it, you have to move the products off the shelf. Do you know how difficult that is to do when you have an inflationary scenario that's peaking out and people think that there's recession coming and they're worried about spending money? How are you going to get those expensive products off the shelf in order to bring in the new cheaper products? It's going to be difficult. It's going to take time. It's the same issue. That is the exact same issue that we were facing in the lumber yard. And I knew it was going to happen. That when the lumber ran up to $13.50 per thousand and we saw the crashing of prices, that everybody was going to say, "Oh, look, the futures have come down, but all the lumber yards and all the mills are still charging, in a high price for it because they're greedy bastards," right? Because that's the way it works. Nobody really thinks about no, because there's expensive lumber sitting in the system right now. And all that expensive lumber has to work through the system before you can bring the cheaper lumber in and start bringing the prices down. Just because the numbers come down and the futures come down and the oil prices come down and all this stuff comes down doesn't mean that everything in the system doesn't have the original price tag still attached to it that needs to work its way through the system. So that's going to take a while to do that. But it's coming. The deflation is going to come, guys. I mean, the Federal Reserve has promised pain, and that's what it's going to be. It's going to be a deflationary, painful experience that people are just not prepared for. I mean, they said that they were going to let the asset prices run extra hot, extra long for an extended period of time. They said that they were going to do that. And then on top of that, they said that they were going to combat inflation with interest rates staying elevated for an extended period of time. And I did a video talking about this 3-4 years ago, that they were going to let the inflation or let the prices of homes move up extremely high, so when they lift the interest rates and the prices start to come down, they'll come down to what would have been a normal price. And I'm pretty sure that's what we're going to be experiencing right now. I mean, everybody wants to take like a crash from the current numbers. Like they say, hey, this $580,000 house has lost $150,000. That's a crash, but nobody wants to talk about how it went up $200,000 over the last 2 years. All right? I mean, if it went back down to $300,000-$400,000 again, right, it'd be going back down to normal. I mean, I'm being kind of extreme and, a little bit obscure with these numbers, but you get what I'm saying. It's just like, just like pretty much anything else out there, all these numbers, all these all-time highs, they've all come down. Like, name anything that's at an all-time high right now. Everything has come off its all-time highs. Yeah. All right, onward. Did I get another super chat? Yeah, Larry Bird, thank you so much for the $9.99, man. Ice cream on me. Thanks for all your knowledge. Well, I appreciate it, guys. And, I'm not, another thing I got to thinking about is because, a lot of people like call me out saying, man, you're wrong. You got this wrong. I'm not trying to necessarily be right. Like I said it before, you guys aren't supposed to believe me. You're supposed to be thinking for yourself. You're supposed to take the links that I leave down in the description. You read those, you take the opinion that I put out there in the video, and we have a discussion on it. That's the whole point of this channel. I'm not trying to be right. I'm just trying to think. And I'm trying to get you guys to think too, because when I put out these videos, it amazes me the knowledge that I gain from you and all the stuff that I'm reading after I put out these videos. It's incredible. All right. Boy, I'm having a hard time saying here. Yamabushi, Nate, thank you very much for the $4.99. That's very kind of you. Is there any kind of white pill perspective to all this that's going on? Seems like there's nowhere to turn sometimes. Well, I don't know, man. I mean, everybody seems to be running scared, right? They're all in fear. They're all like, worried about government coming down and getting their guns taken from them, and just everybody's living in this fear, and it just drives me crazy because, like, you can't live in fear. If you live in fear, what's going to end up happening is you're going to bring a negative life to yourself, right? Living in fear, it's a negative energy that will draw like in negative things to you, because fear is a powerful energy within it, right? And it's not something that you should be like pushing away. Right? Fear is something that protects you. It's something that's, meant to, keep you alive, right? It keeps you concerned. But when you're in fear, in a constant state of fear, what ends up happening is you're pushing your energy out to your extremities, right? You push it out to your hands and your feet. You're ready, you're in this fight or flight mode. You're ready to just like, throw down or get away or do something, right? But what you're not doing is you're not centering your energy. You're not channeling it to your core, right? So now when you think about it, and not in a fearful sense, right? But an understanding, like a peace and love and just that understanding part of things. And you channel that into your core and you center that, right? And you think of that in a positive manner. And you think about the things that you can do in order to, provide positive things to you and your family and all the stuff that's around you. Well, then you're going to start drawing in those positive things that come towards you, right? Or from that. So it's important not to live in fear. I mean, living in fear it's important to have fear at times, right? To be fearful of a particular outcome and to protect yourself from it. But to live in a constant state of fear, to absorb information that is constant fear, to look for things that are going to be coming and attacking you or something like that, you're going to find a very depressive life from something like that. So the point of this whole thing is to be more understanding of the current situation that you're in, right? Now, I think about it like being out on that river. Think about it like this, right? You're out on the river. You would love for it to be like a calm, perfect day every single time you're out there, right? Because that's the best time. That's the most enjoyable time that you're out there. But if you want to catch fish, you're going to have to be out there not necessarily when the conditions are perfect, right? You're going to have to go out there when the conditions are bad. And it isn't fun necessarily to be out there when the conditions are bad. But if you want to catch fish, you're going to have to be out there doing that. Now, you could be sitting on shore, letting somebody else go out there and catch the fish. And then they're going to come back and tell you what fish you get and how you're going to enjoy those fish, right? But if you want to do it for yourself, then you're going to have to take a chance to be out there on that river during times when it's not comfortable, right? That's the difference inside of it. Like, don't let somebody else be the one who's going to be providing you with that fish. You need to go out there and figure out how to do that on your own. And you're not going to always have calm waters to be in. You're going to have some rough seas that you're going to have to figure out how to be in, especially if you're going to do this on your own. I don't know. Does that make sense? All-nighter gets it. I know he gets it. All right. Okay. Let's see here. Hey, UE. So supply chain severing causes inflation. Fed raises rates, props up inflation. Ironically, yeah. Pivot brings deflation. Does that mean Fed will incentivize to stimulate heavily? Will be incentivized to stimulate heavily. Okay. I don't know if they're going to be incentivized to stimulate heavily. I think the Federal Reserve is a system, right? I mean, and if you think about it like a system, so what do they have, right? They have debt cycles that they're trying to work through. Well, Jesus, the next cycle coming has them at a very low neutral rate, right? Or low Fed funds rate. Typically, they would want to drop that around 5%. They're not going to be able to drop that 5% and still stimulate the economy. It's just not going to happen. So they're going to have to do something a little bit different on it. I mean, I guess they could. They could try and drop the 5% and do it, but it's just, to me, it's probably going to end up having to go negative. And now this is the problem with it is that they can print up as much money as you want, right? As they want. They can inject that into the system and it'll work, right? Everybody's going to get this money and they're all going to sing kumbaya as they go out there and spend and stimulate. And they're going to be like, haha, you're wrong, UE. Everything works out awesome. MMT is the best, right? And so this is really where like the Federal Reserve is going to have to lead us to into some sort of modern monetary theory where there's stimulus checks that are handed out like every month or every quarter or as often as they see fit. Because there's not going to be enough money velocity out there to keep the economy growing. It's actually going to end up deflating into, a spiral of non-growth. And that's a major issue for the Federal Reserve if you can't take the cash out of the system. Right? So this is really what it comes down to is going digital, because if you have cash in the system, people aren't going to accept the negative interest rates on their savings accounts. They'll just start pulling their money out in cash and holding cash in their mattress. The Federal Reserve knowing this, and the Bank of International Settlements and the IMF, everybody knows this, right? So they know that they're going to have to establish a central bank digital currency. To have this digital currency in order to keep people from pulling their money out of the banking system so that then they can take things into a negative interest rate. Now, bad thing about that, your savings sucks because you don't have any anymore. In fact, you lose it to the negative interest rate. But on the flip side of that, The government's going to be giving you money for free, for nothing, that you have to spend. And you're going to have to spend it. In fact, they'll probably even put time limits on it, saying that if you don't spend it in the next 30 days, you're going to lose it. So it'll force people to go out there and stimulate the economy. And then on top of it, since it's a central bank digital currency, they can really, like, direct where it can go. Like saying, hey, you need to spend this money on these particular things out there so we can stimulate that particular part of the economy. Talk about total control. And now this is really what I think the Federal Reserve is moving towards. In the end, right? Like right now, they're doing their best to try and get those Fed funds up to that 5%. If they can keep it at 5% for a significant amount of time, like a significant amount of time, they have to get it to 5% and leave it there for like a year, right? If they can do that, then okay, they can drop the Fed funds rate and possibly stimulate the economy and not have to go into negative and not have to introduce the central bank digital currency and all that other stuff. I just don't think that's going to work, right? Not me personally. I don't know. I forgot what the question was. I think I just started rambling at that point. All right. Implementing CBDC will be that, and to keep up with the China is doing. Yeah. Again, I think to me it's all about negative interest rates, and that's really what it comes down to. A debt-based currency is going to fail. Like if you don't go negative, it's going to fail. That's it. Just like straight up, it's just not going to work anymore. And so if the system is going to continue, and I seriously doubt the Federal Reserve and the top economists out there in the world are going to just simply say, well, there was nothing that we could do, too bad, sorry guys. They're going to do something, right? And we don't know what it is. We don't know exactly what that plan is. We didn't see the special purpose vehicles, or at least I didn't know of anybody out there who was saying, no, when the pandemic kicks in, the Federal Reserve is going to institute, set up these special purpose vehicles to backstop every corner of the financial market. Like, I didn't find anybody out there who was talking about that. In fact, I could hardly find anybody who was talking about the special purpose vehicles anyway. I mean, I was one of the few people who actually went through the Federal Reserve's, paperwork and said, okay, this is what each one of these lending facilities is going to do. And that's how we knew about the corporate debt lending facility, and how, I made this suggestion. I was just like, I don't know if this thing is quite what it is. Now, I thought for sure when I started reading about the corporate debt lending facility from the Federal Reserve using that special purpose vehicle to buy corporate debt, I thought for sure, oh man, this is it. This is horrible. Like they're going to be, basically bailing out corporations straight up out of the Federal Reserve, like straight up printing money and bailing corporations with it. And that's illegal. Like the Federal Reserve can't legally go and buy corporate debt like that. But they set up this special purpose vehicle, and now they have the ability to do it. And I thought for sure, man, this is bad news, bad news. I wonder how much and when they're going to get it. And they never really got it. They bought some, established a credible threat, and then that was all they needed. But yet, the mainstream media and YouTubers out there were just blowing their tops off, talking about how the Federal Reserve was buying up all this corporate debt. And they didn't hardly buy any. They didn't hardly buy any at all, And that's, again, that was something that I don't think anybody was anticipating. Like, we knew the credible threat scenario. We knew about those. And we gave all kinds of examples of it. But I was not expecting the credible threat from the special purpose vehicle from that corporate debt lending facility. That was a good one. Good job, guys. You really nailed it on that one. You got the entire market to go out there and start front running the Federal Reserve and corporate debt. There was a big boom in it. This is like everybody was getting into corporate debt at that point. It was like almost like the thing to have in your portfolio. All right, moving on. All roads lead to judgment. Yep, pivot. All right, the Fed's plan is to become the buyer and seller of last resort and get the people to be the renters paid with the Ponzi economics digital currency. I don't know. Well, maybe. I don't know. It's like, I don't think the Federal Reserve really cares about all that. Like, they don't want to be owners of all this other stuff. What they want is for everybody to be in debt. That's it. Like, to be debt slaves. If they could have everybody in debt, like up to their eyeballs, spending every dime that they earn on interest payments, I think that would have the banking system just completely ecstatic. They would be like, we did it, boys, we're in it, But the last thing that they want to do is have you pissed off, losing control, and not ambitious to go and get a job and pay them borrow money. Like, Like, that's what they want you to do. They want you to be excited about buying brand new cars and starting businesses and going out there and building big, beautiful things. They want you excited for that, right? That's what they want. That's what the bankers want. It's what all the elitists want. They want you to be excited about borrowing money so that you can go and build beautiful things. And then when they turn the flow of money off, they can go and buy all your stuff for pennies on the dollars. That's the real game, right? All right, Urban X Urban. UE, can you do a vid about the central bank digital currency rollout that may happen to property, stocks, cash, gold, and BTC? Oh, what may happen to those things? Okay. Plans and goals we may be looking at. Thanks, bro. Respect from the city of New York. Well, thank you very much for the $9.99. That is very nice of you. I super appreciate the support. All you guys who support me with the super chats, you guys are so cool. Now, to be honest with you, when the central bank digital currency rolls out, I would not even one bit be scared about anything on it. It's not going to affect anything. In fact, most people probably won't even know that it happened, right? This is how it's going to, in at least from my opinion, this is how it's going to be implemented, because Americans hate change. They're like, hey guys, we got this great idea for you, and they'd be like, nope, don't want it, never mind, I'm good, I don't need anything, right? And that's the way Americans are, so they hate change. So if you're going to do a change, it has to be something that is slow and like incremental. Like, it's just like it starts off with like a small group of people and they play with it a little bit, and then every people get excited, and then you get this network effecting happening, and then everybody starts joining in on it. That's the style that the Federal Reserve is going to move to. China's not that way. They'd be like, you take it, you use it, you're going to like it, right? And so they just force things onto the people, where here pretty much you have to make it like the Americans' ideas. You have to make it the people's idea in order to make it work, or else they just get like literally just standoffish. Like, even if it's a good thing, they won't do it. They'd be like, nope, I'm not in. All right, so when they do set this central bank digital currency up, it's probably going to come like in the form of like small government payments, or like say through EBT cards, something that where the people won't complain about getting it as long as it works, right? So if the people don't complain about the way they get it, or what it is, then they're going to use it and they're not going to be concerned about it at all. So that's the way they're probably going to introduce it. And again, like, nobody's going to know, nobody's going to care. There's going to be some people lighting up, like here on the internet, on YouTube, there's going to be people lighting up about it. But the mainstream media is going to downplay it as no big deal. And then as things progress along and people start becoming more comfortable with the use of central bank digital currencies, they're going to find that they're going to be able to do whatever transactions they could ever possibly imagine with it, including black market drug deals, whatever illegal activities that you want to go with, right? They're going to allow that to happen. And it's not necessarily allowing it to happen, it's just how things happen. They're not going to do anything about controlling the situation because they want you to be really confident with it. And so if you can do illegal activities or just behave in any fashion that you want, well, then you're going to lower your concerns about whether or not you're going to get in trouble for some of the behaviors that you're doing with the central bank digital currency. It's a trap. I mean, essentially, they're giving you enough rope to hang yourself with. So then when people go out there and they just start spending this stuff and they realize, hey, man, I don't get in trouble for buying weed, buying weed from the neighbor with it or whatever you're doing, then they're just going to forget about any kind of illegal things that they're doing with it. And then one day they can turn the switches on and just say, okay, all you people who have been, behaving with these behaving badly, in our opinion, now go away, right? Or if you behave badly from this point on, you're going to go away. And that's very easy to do. I mean, something like that would be, with central bank digital currencies, could be very easily done. So that's kind of my opinion about the whole thing on it. Again, like, my level of concern about central bank digital currencies is about, I don't know, an inch off the floor. Like, I have no concerns about government intrusion coming down, spying on me, and all that other stuff. I mean, if that's the type of fear that you have, then you need to be 100% in gold and silver, right? Or some kind of like Monero, like some kind of like secret cryptocurrency or non-tracing one. But if, I mean, I just don't see it. Like, I don't see it happening like that. All right, ZELLE, let's see, ZELLE, Venmo, and all those peer-to-peer services will disappear overnight with central bank digital currencies. I doubt it. I think those guys are going to be the players inside of it. I think those are the ones who are going to be processing a lot of these payments. And I wouldn't be surprised that you find that stable coins end up being used a lot more, than what people are giving them credit for. Excuse me, guys. Because it was already stated in quite a few Fed speeches, they talk about these stable coins quite extensively. And what I found interesting is that in some of their statements, when they talk about these stable coins and the regulation of stable coins and like the auditing practices of these stable coins, then they start talking about how monetary policy can transfer through anything that is pegged to the dollar. So if you have a nation that has pegged their dollar to the US dollar, like they peg their currency to the dollar, whatever monetary policy that is going on with the United States transfers through into their monetary policy as well. That same thing would happen with stable coins. So you could have stable coins, a digital currency, it's backed, backed 1-to-1 with the dollar. Then you have this central bank digital currency that's already in play that nobody even realized was going to happen. Like, it's not necessarily like a central bank digital currency, but it's the Federal Reserve fiat currency that is now transferred through a stable coin, and now these stable coins are being regulated in, whatever. All right. Hey, Jaws, good to see you up in here. $1.99. Thank you so much. How are you going to make your kids aware of these changes in the currency and help them live life not in serfdom? We won't be controlled by central bank digital currency. Our kids and grandkids will. Yeah, that's a great question, Jaws. Awareness. Awareness is going to be the key to all that, because if you do not allow your kids to become aware now, they are going to grow right up into that society and then not have any idea on how to deal with it, how to deal with any of the freedoms that would need to, let's see, the freedoms that you would need to secure, they would not have the skills in order to acquire those freedoms, those things that they need. So right now I teach, like, Freddie, he's the one who's really interested in it. My older boy, I mean, he's somewhat concerned. He's more of an artist type, right? He just he goes with the flow. But Freddie, he's very much engaged. Like, he wants to know this stuff. He wants to, be involved. And so we talk about cryptocurrencies. We talk about, like, some of the things that, the concerns that come from it. We talk about the exchanges. This stuff is very complicated for, like, an adult to try and understand. So when it comes to, like, a child, you have to explain it things on very simple terms. Like for Bitcoin, I just explained it to him like, hey, it's computer money, but it's a ledger, right? And so what we tried to do is explain to him like a book that has all the transactions written down. And I said, if you can imagine everybody having a copy of this book, and it goes out to everybody, and if you put a transaction, you wrote it down in that book, that transaction would magically appear in everybody else's book so that everybody knows who did what transaction. And he got that part, and I just left it at that, right? Because, like, trying to explain it any deeper than that was just going to be too much. But he understands that there's transactions being recorded and everybody sees it, and that's the important part in order to get him stepped into the blockchain, right? Because, like, I mean, what do I know about blockchain? I'm not, some techie guy. But, as far as understanding, like, the blockchain ledger, the distributed ledger system and stuff like that, that's how you do it. You start there, right? And now their curiosity is going to be going a little bit. Like, he knows a little bit more than his friends, and if you can keep that curiosity going, pretty soon he's just going to start building on that knowledge, and then they'll end up being smarter than we are about it. At least that's how I'm going about it, Charles. I mean, Freddie's he's a smart little kid. I mean, he listens to me a lot, and when I saw him, like I said this in a previous video too, I watched Freddie one time. He came to me, and he had 2 20s and a 10, if I remember right, and he said, "Hey, Dad, can I have a $50 bill?" And I was like, where did you even get the 2 20s and the 10? Like, I don't remember giving you, like, he didn't. He's been concentrating his money. Like, he'll get 5 $1 bills and then turn that into a 5. And then he'll get 2 5s and turn it into a 10. And then he'll take his 10 and get it to 20s. And then now he's up to a $50 bill. He's like, he has this $50 bill that he's finally, like, concentrated into a single bill. And I thought to myself, he's saving. Like that's how he saves. He knows that if he puts it into a bigger bill, he's less likely to spend that money. And so that's his way of saving the money is he's concentrating it into bigger bills. And I thought, man, that's something he did all on his own. Like I didn't even like suggest that to him. He just picked that up. So these skills, he's learning them as it's happening here, and this is the way you do it. You start them when they're young. You know. All right. Thanks for the question, Jaws, man. It's good to hear from you. All right. Everyone have a great evening. Got to run, and thank you for the video. Yeah, you're welcome, Kathleen. Thanks for being here. All right. Strike already. Debt is ego fuel. Yeah. You're right about that, man. Like, I was talking about it earlier I remember like when I was a kid, like I always dreamed of driving like big fancy cars and living in this, like I had all these like dreams of these material possessions. And then as I got older, the material possessions were like less important to me. And now I think about it, it's like there's really nothing out there that I want so bad that I would take out debt to buy it, except for the house, right? I didn't even, we already discussed that. But as far as like cars or anything else out there, like I'm not terribly interested in taking out debts to buy anything out there. What I want to take out a debt in is something that's going to end up paying me more than the cost of the debt, like good debt, right? Buying rental properties or something like that. All right. Great Freddie story. Yeah, thank you. Freddie's a smart little kid, man. I mean, and I know everybody says that about their own kids. Like, everybody's got some, their kids are the smart ones. But Freddie is like, he's something different. I mean, he's definitely like, he's got an intelligence there that I just don't get because I didn't have that when I was his age. Like, he must get that from his mom's side of things. All right. Love the UE. Hey, thank you, Dennis. All right. Like, stop paying women to have kids and not work. Stop giving free money to elderly instead of get them into meaningful jobs. Improve technology to get work done more efficiently. Huh? All right. If we're going to run out of fossil fuels and... Oops, where did that question go? I lost it. Oh, here we go. All right. If we're going to run out of fossil fuel and lithium for car batteries by 2050, then they need to be transparent and tell everyone instead of hiding it. Well, okay. That's legit, right? But here's the thing. The closer we get to a situation like that, people figure out a way. Like, necessity is the mother of invention. People will find something else. And I know, like, when you're looking at it here and you're thinking there is nothing else, well, there will be. Like, people will figure it out. Like, I don't know how else to explain it, but that's just the case. Like, people will figure out what it is that they need to do in order to make it work again. And, so, yeah, I don't know. Like, I mean, is it fair? No, it's not fair that they don't tell you, but they also shouldn't scare the hell out of you when, you can figure it out, when the people will, All right. Gene skip generations, probably your great-grandfathers. Yeah, okay, I can go with that, All right. I talked to a tow truck guy, and he mentioned the diesel shortage is bullshit. Not sure about it myself. Well, now, again, I didn't want to say anything about it because I didn't know. I didn't know anybody with direct contact within the oil industry. Like, I wish I did. I didn't know anybody, right? So I had to talk to everybody that I know who buys diesel, right? All the truck drivers, all the guys who have, diesel pickup trucks, all the heavy equipment operators, all those people. I asked them all. I said, have you had a situation in which that you couldn't get diesel yet? And they said no. And I said, are you concerned about not getting diesel today? And they said no. And when I didn't know what to do after that. I was like, I don't think there's this diesel shortage in the way that a lot of people are saying there is. Now, I'm not saying there isn't one, but I haven't experienced it from anybody that I have talked to yet. So I don't know. UE, I think you're going to have to invest in a ring light for the winter car chats. Yeah, I think I'm gonna agree on that. I'm trying to like look towards the light so I don't just have like this dark face here, but yeah, I agree. Those ring lights would definitely help for doing the night chats here. All right. Learn multiple languages. Yeah, that would be fun to do. I've always been impressed with anybody who's bilingual. Like, to me, that just, like, I just look at that as like one of the coolest like skills to have. And then to me, it's just like, I don't know. I look at people who are bilingual as like having a higher intelligence. Like, I just do. It's just like, to me, that's just an incredible thing to be able to do. All right. And then what's funny about it is like, a lot of Spanish, because that's like the closest, common like foreign language that we would be speaking, as far as foreign languages or possible ones. I live in a Scandinavian rich place, so there's a lot of people who do speak like Finnish, but like as far as like Finnish speaking like community or something like that, there's none of that happening. Alright. Playing devil's advocate. Right on. I love these ones. Okay. Will central bank digital currency help to control inflation because it can force spending in certain targeted areas? Yes, it can. That's exactly what I believe it is going to do. It's going to force people to spend money. Like, here's your stimulus. Now, go to the restaurant or go buy appliances or go buy something. Like, they can force the money to go in a particular direction. And, and with that being said, like, they can, I mean, if you can get it to that point, then you can really control just about everything about the economy. I mean, you can, it's scary if you think about it in that sense, but I just don't think like the Federal Reserve is going to push it. Because if, again, like, necessity would be the mother of invention. If the Federal Reserve and the powers that be out there start pushing people too hard with the central bank digital currency, and what I mean by pushing them is like just pissing them off, then they'll riot, they'll throw it away, and they won't use it, and they'll move into something else, and then they really have lost control. That's the last thing that they want, right, is for the people to abandon the idea of using the dollar, right? And it could happen. I mean, people would be like, sure, we ain't doing this anymore. We're going to switch over to whatever cryptocurrencies we want. And then they can make all the laws against it they want. But if the people just decide that that's the way it's going to be, then there's nothing they can do about it. I mean, Prohibition really proved that to me a long time ago, that you can't stop people from drinking alcohol. Right? The only people who are going to stop themselves from drinking alcohol is themselves. That's it. Right? There ain't no government, ain't no law, ain't nothing going to change it, right? So they knew that, right? The government knows that you can't stop the people from doing what they want to do. And the same thing with weed. Like, weed in Oregon has always been legal. Like, it wasn't legal, it was decriminalized, is what I should say. But you never got in trouble for it. Like, if you got stopped and you had an eighth in your pocket or something like that, they gave you a ticket. They literally wrote you out a ticket, handed it to you, took your weed, and then you were on your way. That was it. That was the worst of it. Like, Oregon you weren't, it was a misdemeanor. That's it. And so, when it comes to like enforcement of laws and stuff like that, I think about how many people had spent years, like, ruined their lives because they got caught with a little bit of weed, right? It wasn't like anything that you should be locked up for or anything like that, but yet that's what happened to them. And so when they make ridiculous laws, then eventually the people just get fed up. And now what do we see? We see marijuana laws just becoming legal all over the country because marijuana shouldn't have been illegal. It was a stupid thing to make illegal to begin with. I mean, it just blows me away. Like, it's just a goddamn weed. Like, I don't understand why people get so excited over it, Alright. When he gets college age and wants $51 bills for his 50, you got problems. Well, yeah. Alright. If I want to smoke an herb, it's not the state's business or anyone else's. Yeah, that's right. Weed is legal in Thailand now. Make it legal everywhere, not a smoker, but the federal ban keeps a lot of good truck drivers off the road. That's right. It keeps a lot of good people from being able to perform at the top of their game in a lot of businesses. I mean, I remember like a long time ago, I can't remember, it was the snowboarder who lost it. It was like he was like one of the first snowboarders to lose their medal for marijuana, having marijuana in their system or something like that. And I can't remember, but didn't they reverse the call on that, saying that it wasn't a performance enhancing drug? And then like all the stoners out there were like, bullshit, it wasn't, you know. And they were like, he was totally stoned the whole time he was, you know, out there doing his thing. Anyway, where have you been? Okay, I don't know. Where's that at? Okay, I heard there's a strict weed laws in Japan. Yeah, and I hear that's, you know, there's strict weed laws all over, you know, the world. What was it, the Philippines? Doesn't like the Philippines kill you for having possession of it? Russia will lock you up for a really long time and piss everybody off about it too. You do it on purpose. All right. Atheists who exist due to the miracle of creation then deny the creation they exist within. Laughable. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I can see your point on that. What about the pre-sale for Amazon coins? Or, I don't know. Like, again, you're going to probably, I would not be surprised that in 10 years, there is a coin for everything out there. There's a coin for every shop that you go into and every product that is sitting on the shelves within it. They will be tokenized, everything. Everything will be tokenized and put onto the blockchain. Every service, every item, everything. There will be nothing that isn't tokenized. All right. All matter and energy is eternal. It has no other place to go. Death is a concept. Yeah. All right. But now psychoanalysis is being combined with what is that? Hypothesis? Jesus, I cannot speak today. All right. And been made easy and identified extensively through the use of barbiturates, which induce a hypnoid. Okay, I don't know if I even read that. Okay, how is the price of lumber lately? Okay, well, lumber prices are down dramatically. I think they closed at like what, 420, 430 per thousand right now. I did a great video interview with Keta from Madison's Lumber Report. If you have not caught that video, I suggest you go and check it out. She is super informative when it comes to the lumber industry, like more than anybody I think I've ever met. So if you want to know more about the lumber industry, I would definitely follow Keta at the Madison's Lumber Report and check out that interview that we did the other day. It's a great talk, and we're going to talk again in February. So if you want to know what lumber is doing right now, it is down. It's probably going to stay down for the next couple of months. After the new year, we're going to see inventory levels tighten up dramatically, and we're going to start seeing the rise of lumber prices again. How much, how far, how fast, all that stuff, even the timing of it, I could be wrong on, but that's my guess, is somewhere shortly after the new year, we're going to start seeing the move back up again. All right, government finally figured out that weed is weaker of an opium to keep us like Chinese coolies was kept in check in the past. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, trying to use weed to keep the people dumbed down, I don't think it's going to quite work. UE, if this central bank digital currency thing gets to where the government decides who gets injected into, or what gets injected into you or your family's body, will you get out of the system? There is no way that they are going to force anything, right? Anything that you have put into your body was your choice, right? Now, you didn't have to work at that company, right? You didn't have to do a lot of the things that were out there, right? But as far as being forced to do something, you were never forced to do anything, right? You made that decision to do that because you wanted something else in your life, right? You wanted to compromise something for something out there. And that's what ended up happening. And no, like, they will not. Right. Isn't November and December the slowest months for home sales? It is. It's the slowest month for home sales and for home starts too. I mean, usually right about now is when starts are in the toilet like they usually are. But this year they are like incredibly bad. I mean, due to the fact that the home sales are so low and the buyer traffic is not happening, home builders are not excited about getting homes started right now. And that's something that I thought about. It's just like anything else out there. If you have a lack of availability or a lack of new manufacturing coming into the system, what's going to happen, right? The availability of new homes is going to become very, very tight since nobody's starting new ones. Yes, there is the fear that there's going to be this wave of foreclosures and a big list of homes coming onto the market all of a sudden, crashing in prices, but that hasn't happened yet. What is happening is the lack of new home starts. So, I mean, I'm thinking, well, if you're a home builder looking to have a house built when nobody else is doing it, now's the time, right? Now's the time you start when nobody else is starting homes. Intuitively, it doesn't make sense because, you're thinking, well, by the time the home gets built, I'm going to have to sell it for less than what I paid for it. But think about it. You're building a house when nobody else is. What's that meaning? Like, when the house is finished, you're the only one who built a house. So what is that going to be worth? People lost their jobs for taking the injection. People lost their jobs for taking the injection? I don't know anybody who lost their job for getting vaccinated. I don't know anybody who did that. Now, I did hear of people who lost their jobs for not getting vaccinated. I did hear about that. And you do have a choice to go find another job. Like, you're not required to work at that job. And that job is not required to have you as their employee, right? If you do not fit into their little machine, you're not a cog that fits in there, then they don't have to keep you employed, right? I mean, in some states they make you come up with a reason, but here in Oregon you don't have to have any reason. Like, in fact, it's better in Oregon not to give a reason why you're letting somebody go, other than just saying, hey, we're slowing down, we just don't need you anymore, unfortunately, we just can't use you anymore. That, if you give any other reason, then they can come back and sue you for it, right? So you just give no reason whatsoever. It's just like, hey, if things are slowed down, we just don't need you anymore. And that's what ends up happening with that, but you don't have to work for that particular company. I mean, you might really like your job, you might really like the pay, you might not be able to find anything else, and you feel like you need this job, and you feel like you don't have any other choice. And in that situation, you probably really don't have much of a choice, not if you want to maintain the life that you have going. And if that's the case, then you're going to have to get jabbed for that. I feel sorry for you. I mean, I wouldn't have put myself in that position. Like, I wouldn't put, like, I mean, if that's the case that it came down to, I would have been like, I'm sorry guys, I'm gonna have to go find someplace else to work, if that's the way you truly felt about it. All pain is emotion. Well, physical pain, I mean, there's physical pain. Have a job will make you a living, but to get wealth requires starting a business and doing something different. Absolutely right. And the reason why is there's no way having a job will ever make you rich. Like, you will never, like, there's some people like that you can work for where you can have a pretty decent living. Like, you can do okay with it and have a pretty decent living. But the problem with working for somebody else is that there's not enough hours in the day. Right? There's only so many hours that you can put in, and that's it. Like, at the end of the day, you can't put any more than what you put in. But when you have something that is a passive income, something that can pay you while you're sleeping, then that's the way you move it into rich. Like, if you could start a business that, can operate when you're not there, or, if you can start YouTube channel or start some kind of affiliate sales, thing going on the internet, selling items through Amazon or something like that. There is so many ways to make money out there, and you don't necessarily have to be there doing it, like having an hourly job or something. There is all kinds of ways to make money. And it's important that if you are ever wanting to be like super wealthy, I mean, then you gotta do something that is not for somebody else. Like, there is never going to be anybody in the world who made us super wealthy working for somebody else. I guess there is a handful of people who might have made like killer commissions doing sales or something like that, working for somebody else. But even in that, if you're doing commission, you're working for yourself. You are. You were a salesman who was working for themselves. You just happen to be using their product to do it. So yeah, that's what it comes down to. You either have to start a business for yourself, or you have to figure out a way to start earning passive income, something that'll pay you while you're sleeping. All right. Physical pain is just an electric impulse. You said you agree with weed legalization, but what about stronger drugs? Outlawing a lot of them doesn't seem to be particularly effective. Okay. I'm a libertarian, so I think that all drugs should be, whatever. And here in Oregon, they just about are. We've had some serious issues with the legalization, not legalization, decriminalization is what I should say. There's a difference between that. It's not a crime, right? It's a misdemeanor to get caught with drugs now. And as long as it's like, you're not like an insane amount of it, or you're trying to sell it or something like that. But if you just got your basic possession, it's just your personal use, then it's a confiscation, it's a fine, you don't really get in trouble with it. The only problem with this is that because they have done this, they also incorporated a few other little things like petty crime you don't get in trouble for either. It's like all this stupid things like that people do. They basically take like getting in trouble for those things away. Now it's not exactly like legal to go and steal or something like that. You're still going to get in trouble for all that stuff, but it's like the punishment for it has been dropped down dramatically. And so there is a handful of people who have some really bad behaviors that take advantage of that whole thing. Like they'll do drugs in front of people and like in public and stuff like that, or they just like blatantly try to steal, or something of that kind of obvious thing. But the fact is that all those drugs and everything was already there. Like, to think that it wasn't there before is like, is like delusional. All that stuff was already there. And so now it can be faced with like a face value problem. Hey, this can't be happening like this any longer, right? Now they're doing it no matter what, so there's no stopping that. But now it can be taken for face value, and it can be dealt with in a proper fashion. Chasing people around for doing drugs and then punishing them, it's not going to work. It's like, okay, I know it's not going to work to punish somebody for drugs, because if you have ever been addicted to alcohol, you would understand why, right? There is not a thing in the world. There's not a threat of people leaving you, or the job firing you, or losing all your money, or losing everything you have. None of those threats are enough to prevent you from drinking. None of them, right? So it doesn't matter what punishment you put on people for doing drugs or having drugs or whatever, it ain't gonna work. It just simply will not work. So now when you have at least the problem brought to you at a face value, it's right here in front of us, right? It's not something that's like, hey, all these drugs, those guys should be over here busting those people for those drugs. No, it ain't gonna work like that. Now you got to deal with it for the face value of the problem. And really what it comes down to, addictions and all that other stuff, it's all mental issues. It's a mental deterioration that has taken place. So if we had better mental health problem, dealing with the mental health problems, we would probably be dealing with a hell of a lot of the drug problems too. All right, onward. Infamous NYC, thank you so much for the $10. I was a nurse living in NYC. I saw the mandates coming. I left New York and doing travel nursing now, making double now, invest in dividends, sell covered calls, and starting a farm for passive income. Dang, you're on it. You're doing it right. Good for you. Thank you for the $10 too. That was really nice of you for the support. And I love what you got going on there too. It's just like you saw this coming, and it's like, I'm bailing out of here and I'm going to do things right. And that's what you seem to be doing now, All right. Never go to bed angry. Let people know what you think. Yeah, that is... Letting people know what you think is probably one of the biggest problems I think a lot of people have out there, is that they don't live a conscious life, and they don't really say what they feel and how they feel in order to please the people around them. right? To let them like feel like they're comfortable or okay, or that you're comfortable or okay, or something when you're not. Yeah, I agree with that. Say what you feel, you know. And when you do that, then you feel better for yourself too. Like I don't, I like I understand that I say some stuff that people just totally disagree with, right? I mean, they just straight up, dude, you're completely wrong. You're crazy. You're saying it wrong, right? Like I get that, right? But it's not something that you get angry over. It's not like it's different concepts, different ideas, different whatever. But it's not something that you actually get angry over. And then being angry over something like that, it's like, how are you supposed to evolve through it, right? It's like you can't. Like if you just stay stuck in this anger, then how are you supposed to understand what it is that created the problem in the first place? So like it's you can't fix the consciousness in the same consciousness that created the problem. All right. Thankfully, okay, back to the infamous NYC. Thank you again for the another $10. It's really cool. Thankfully, was single, and the pandemic taught me I didn't have enough in savings. So I saved all the way up to the mandate. Was ready to move to Mexico if need be. I had private home care in NYC. See, now that's thinking, right? You were ready to head to Mexico? I mean, that's like I wasn't even prepared to leave the county, Like I can't imagine like, packing up and bailing off to Mexico. Uh, right on. There's 340 of you up in here. I really appreciate y'all hanging out with me this evening. You do me a favor, go over and hit that like button. I'll be out here, let's say, for at least another half an hour or so. We'll see if we can't get a few more people up into the live stream here and into our chats. All right. Is Charlie Sheen still winning? All right. Nice, infamous. Congrats. Yeah, absolutely. Food stocks and commodities is where I have been since 2021. Yeah. I have. I can't even. What is it? I have ADC, IPAR, and a few others. Nice index too. Oh, I see. Some of the stocks and stuff. Okay. If we all really knew, we would all be rich. Well, yeah. I mean, the major problem that I think a lot of people have is that, well, for one, they just don't know. Like they just don't know like even what to do. Like if they can get a job, like a 9 to 5 job, then a lot of people think that that's it. That's like the accomplishment of what it is that they need to do. And then they maintain this job, and hopefully they can be smart enough with the money that they earn from that job to somehow live life and then retire from it. And like, it's no wonder why there's so many people who are frustrated with it, because that isn't going to work. I mean, it's just simply not going to work. And so you really have to, if you have a 9 to 5 job, it's a matter of like spending every waking hour in the pursuit of money. Like it really comes down to that. And I hate to say it because it almost becomes like a mental issue. Like it really does. Like if you become so obsessed with money that you really kind of like lose track of a lot of the other things that are out there. But if you don't do it, then you won't achieve that. You won't achieve it. Right? That's why high performance people, like you see these high performance men, they have these shitty lives, like the family hates them or whatever. It's because they focus so damn hard on trying to achieve that goal that they missed everything else in their life. Like this is a very common thing that takes place. So if you are like, a lot of people are like, man, I just want that money so bad. If I had that money, my life would be so awesome. I don't know, man. Are you sure about that? Like the pursuit of that money might destroy you, right? And you may not be happy once you get there. So, yeah. Bang. All right, Jose, thank you very much for the $1.99. It was great to meet you in person last week. Thanks. Hey, Jose, thank you very much. Yeah, it was. We met over at the Blue Scorcher, and I had some tacos, and we sat there and bullshit for about a half an hour, 45 minutes or so. It was a great little conversation. All right. Many angry. Yeah, there's a lot. Well, anger comes from just frustration of not knowing and not being, it's like, it's either from being like, like, There's only two reasons why you get angry. You're either hurt or you're scared. That's it. It's the only two. There's really no other reasons why somebody would get angry. And you know, most people when they're angry, it's because they got hurt. Right? Very few people get angry because they're scared. Most of the time, it's they're hurt. They're either like cheated or deceived or something of that nature, right? They felt like they were done wrong, and then they get angered over that, and want revenge and whatever that comes from it. But that's usually what ends up causing it. Is people get angry because they got hurt, or they're scared. And I can see why people would be angry about losing all their stuff. Like if you're in fear of losing everything that you have ever worked for, I'd be angry over that too. But I don't live in fear of that. So, and that's a lot of the problem with that is people who have put everything in one basket. Like if you have everything wrapped up inside of just one spot of whether it's the economy or portfolio or whatever it is. I mean, it's kind of funny because it's a two-way street on that one. The way you make it really rich is by putting everything into one thing. But if you put everything into one thing, then you're really taking your chances on doing something like that, right? So if you diversify, you have stocks, you have silver, you have cryptos, you got land, you got bullets, you got canning equipment, you got all this stuff out there. All of a sudden your fear level really drops. You're not in fear anymore. Man, there is so many of you chatting tonight. I love it, man. Thank you so much. I like your words, Carman. Thanks. Yeah, I don't know. I try, right? Jesus was said to be a carpenter. Yeah. A Jewish carpenter at that, right? Jesus was not a singer. Okay. I focus on handful of dividends, hold some tech, and write covered calls on it as commodity ATM. I see. All right. People got angrier in Oregon because cost of living went a lot higher. Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, Oregon is like, I don't know, this, especially my area. This used to be a working town. It was a working class town. It was loggers and fishermen and working class people. Like that's what was here. Now it's turning into retirement and medical district and fancy money and stores and stuff. It's not the same place. Like 25 years ago, Astoria did not look like this. It was very different. All right. Most people get more religious than the older they get. Probably a lot of reasons for that one. When things are bad and you have no debt or liabilities, tough times become easier. Yeah, and that is so true. Really, that's what ends up like destroying people and families and everything else is that they get themselves so strung out on debt, and then it's a burden. Like there's nothing they can do after that. Like you lose a little bit of your income, or one of the, like got a household and there's, one of the two working adults loses their income or something like that. And the stress level just magnifies. And when you got like these debts out there and you got these fancy vehicles you're trying to pay for and stuff like that, and you're looking back on your life and you're thinking, man, why did I do that? Why did I buy that car? Why do I have all this stuff? And why did you do that? You start blaming other people on things that have happened and stuff, and then it just starts to deteriorate everything. If you don't have debt, then you don't have a weight on your shoulders that drags you down. Like, the day that I got out of debt, and I've talked to other people about this too, when you carry a lot of like credit card debt or just consumer debt or whatever, and one day you get out of that. Like you had your credit card bills, you've been paying them off, and finally one day you just pay off that last credit card and it's over. You don't have any more debts. There's no more debts to pay. Like even if you wanted to, you couldn't. There's no bills, there's no collection agencies, there's no credit cards, there's nothing. All of a sudden, like the world just feels so much better. Like everything just feels better. People don't annoy you as much. Colors look brighter, coffee smells better, everything is just better about life. And nothing really changed, right? Except you don't have that burden on you anymore. And life is so much better when you have no burden like that. Yeah. That's why it drives me crazy when I think about these students, these kids who graduate high school and immediately take on student debt, and then for the rest of their lives, never once ever getting the chance to experience life without being in debt. Like they never get that opportunity. That is to me, that is the saddest thing, because one of the greatest feelings I've ever had in my life was being debt free at one time. Like, I mean, is it as good as, like, seeing the birth of your child or something like that? No, of course not. But it's a pretty good feeling, All right. Wow, look at all these super chats coming in. Hey, thanks again, Jose. Prepper and finance YouTube channels are hot right now. Yeah, they are. And, it's kind of a weird subculture that we have going on here, being in the macroeconomics field. It's kind of funny because, like, I will find somebody who says, "Oh, hey man, I follow you," and I'll ask them, like, "Who else do you follow?" And they'll list off a handful of people, and I'll know like half of them, right? Because we all kind of group around the same groups. I mean, there's thousands of us out there, so we're not all going to listen to the exact same people, but these circles kind of mix, So, all right. Hey. All right. It's Carol Henry, is that what that says? $9.99. Thank you very much. All right. Anger can be managed, love cannot. Yeah, I guess you're right. Ego fills you with things that weigh you down. Yeah. Homesteading channels are trending too. Yeah, and I could see why people would want to be in the homesteading thing right now. There's going to be some tough times coming up for food supply. Like I said it a bunch of times, and I don't know how else I can say it. The only thing I can really suggest to you to prepare for that is to learn to can. Get canning supplies and learn to can, and you'll do much better during the food shortages. But people get the feel for it. They know it, even if they don't know straight up what it is. The consensus view, like the collective mind, knows. And so when you start seeing people start gravitating towards homesteading projects and stuff like that, they know that there's something coming that's going to lead them into those skills that they need. Right, so that's why they're doing it. One of the things that I find is that I will find my channel will have like a big uptick in subscribers and views just before like something big economic event happens or something. Like people start getting this feel for something happening, and then they go out there and they're trying to find the information for it, and nobody knows exactly what it is or what's going on. But like with my views on my channel, I can say it. It's just like, man, they're looking for something out there. These people are looking for information on something, and they're going around like, they're hitting the YouTubers trying to figure it out. All right. Local butchers are booked months in advance. Another good skill to acquire. Yeah, it is. What's better, Keynesian economics or Austrian economics? That's not a question that's really like something that can be answered. Which one's better? I don't think there is a better system. Like, I don't know what kind of system there is out there that's going to be better, right? It's going to be better for one person and bad for another, So I guess it depends on what kind of strategy you want to take, right? If you want a particular strategy and make that work, then you would want to, this particular type of economy to happen. So to me, it's not a matter of which one's better, it's just which one's happening and how do you deal with that. That's the better question to try and figure out. Keynesian economics is something that we all live in now. This is the way the economy works, it's a Keynesian economist theory. You have government interaction within the debt market so that they could stimulate the economy through government spending stuff. Like, this is like a Keynesian economic thought. Austrian economics, they believe in letting the dead undergrowth burn out, basically allowing bad debts to fail. And that would include like the systemically important banks to fail too. So I'm not saying that one is better than the other, and I certainly am not a fan of Keynesian economics. I would definitely lean more towards the Austrian economics, the free market, sound money kind of thought. That would be what I would feel would be better. But I can't say that it's better. I mean, what do I know? I mean, I'm just the uneducated economist. So I'm trying to figure out what it is that I need to do within the system that we have not try to fix this system. There is no fixing the system, right? There is no like, hey, this is what we need to do and everybody's going to be happy with that. That's not going to happen. So instead of trying to figure out what it is that you need to do to make the system work for you, to try and figure out what it is that you need to do to make that system work for you, right? I mean, that's like, you can't change it to make it work for you. You have to change to make it work for you. All right, man, you guys are just hitting me up with these super chats. Thank you so much. All right, Mark Noman, thank you very much for the $9.99. All right. As far as I know, my roommate landlord won't allow me to learn how to can. I plan on won't allow you to? Well, tell him making soup or something, man. I don't know. It won't allow you to can. I don't get, why would they allow you to can? I don't understand. Do you not have a stove? Are they scared of pressure cookers or something? I mean, that doesn't make any sense. I plan on gathering canning supplies once I reduce and condense my storage unit to store with the freed up space. Oh, if it's space that you're looking for, I can understand that. But really, you don't really need that much space. What you need is jars. That does take up some space. But lids and rings are the most important part because you can reuse the jars. Be careful with them so you don't crack the rims or anything like that, because if you damage them, then you can't use them. But the jar itself, that can be used over and over and over again. So if you have a handful of jars and you're canning and rotating through your canned goods on a regular basis, you do need a lot, but you don't need like, an insane amount of jars. What you do need a lot of is lids and rings, especially lids. The rings you can reuse as well, but lids themselves, that's the crucial part. That's what came up in short supply during the pandemic that everybody was flipping out about. I went and bought 2 cases of lids and rings prior to everybody else like clearing the shelves out, because I wanted to make sure that I had at least 2 cases of lids and rings. Even though I have more than that, I just bought those 2 extra ones just to have them. So lids and rings, some jars, and you can get started. Really, like, if you're gonna start with small, like you could do fruits, like those you can do in a water bath. So you can start with like canning up like berries or something like that, and you can make jams or something. That's fairly easy to do, and you can do those in water baths. And then if you're moving into meat or something like that, then you need to do pressure cooking. But it's not as hard as people try to make it sound. It's actually pretty easy. I've done a video on it. It's on, I posted it here on this channel, of my wife canning up some chicken. I mean, we went to the store, bought chicken, and then canned that up. And, if you're worried about food supplies coming into the future and you don't even, you don't hunt or fish or do anything that yourself, you can find good deals. There's occasionally you can still find good deals at the grocery store, and when you see those good deals come up, you buy a bunch of it and can it up, and then you got the good deal on your meat. All right, moving on. Gosh, so many of you up in here. This is awesome. Hey, thank you, James, for the $5. Really appreciate that. Have you seen Slavery by Another Name? It's a documentary about the Civil War it's about Civil War to end of World War II. How do you think economics changed in this period in the USA? Well, I would have to go back, because that's a long period between the Civil War and World War II. So there's a lot of stuff that happened within that. Ultimately after World War II, everybody around the world was scared of Hitler. And so they sent all their gold to the United States for safekeeping, right? And then we basically kept it and told everybody, here, you can use dollars. So there was a lot that's happened between the Civil War and World War II. So maybe I'll watch that documentary. What was the name of it again? Slavery by Another Name. I know I've heard that. So maybe I'll go and watch that, and we can have a little bit better discussion on the contents of that video. All right. That Sasquatch behind you says the Fed is not pivoting. Yeah, Sasquatch knows. All right. I thought they canned buds up in Astoria, Oregon. They don't can buds. They crush them into dab. That's what they do. All right. 21 chickens killed in my backyard today. 21 chickens, that's about enough. I mean, I used to do 25 to 50 in a day, and that's a lot of birds to butcher in a day. 20 is enough. 20 is good. Like that time we got scared and sent all our chickens to the fox for safekeeping. Yeah, that's about like what happened, right? All right. Sasquatch knows, They don't can buds. No, they don't. What was 2 hours of work? That was 2 hours of work. I do it a few times a year. 2 hours, yeah. You must, by yourself, you must do chicken plucker. Yeah. Because that's really like where the longest time. I mean, I can eviscerate a bird and, like, well, when I got good at it, shit, knock them, have the guts and feet and head and wings and all tucked and everything. I don't know, minute and a half, per bird. So yeah, it doesn't take long to gut a bird out. All right, rain again? Yeah, it rains every day. In fact, this is the way it's going to be for the next 9 months. Is going to be rain hitting the car. What if Jerome goes 0.75? He's not. They're not. They're backing down. They're not going to go above. They're probably not going to shoot anything above that. 1.5 or that 0.5%. Like the 0.5% from this point on is probably most likely from the Federal Reserve. They might do one or two of those, get it up to that 5%. And that's probably as high as it's going to go. Like, I can't imagine them going much more than that. I honestly didn't think that the Federal Reserve was going to go above 2.5% on the Fed funds rate. 2.5 to 3. That's what I had said. But really, when you think about it, it's the Fed funds rate 6 months to a year after it hits that point that it's actually impacting the economy. So even though I did say that it wouldn't go above, that the Fed probably couldn't get it above 2.5 to 3%, we'll see. Like, what happens when 2.5 to 3% or above that starts affecting the economy, right? Starts actually impacting the economy here, which should be taking place right now. Like, I think we are just now hitting the neutral rate, and soon we'll be moving out of neutral and going into a restrictive economy, and we'll start feeling the pain. And that's when the Federal Reserve will be like, okay, well, we might be able to pivot now, because you're all feeling some pain. Okay. I like that weather. Yeah, I do too. The rain that hits the car is 50 million years old. Okay. When do you think the Fed will pivot? I think I just answered that one. Be low key. My yard looks like a dump while my neighbors have crews come in and manicure theirs. Robbers go there first. Yeah. Well, if you have nothing to steal, then, yeah, I mean, if you have nothing to steal. Like, even, I thought about it before. It's just like, I don't even know, like, I mean, other than the TV, I got a nice TV now. I don't have anything. Like, I have old furniture, I have old clothes. Like, I do have some nicer clothes now, but I don't know why somebody would want to steal your clothes. I guess I have some tools, like, I got a little bit of tools, but they're all old and used. They're my old framing tools from back in the day, so those aren't that great. I don't have anything that anybody would want to steal. Like, I don't know, like, I don't really have much. Like, I am not much for material stuff. Like, I just don't have anything. Just get as self-sustaining as possible. Small farmstead, chickens, small solar system, garden, milk, goats. Yep. How can we feel pain? They keep printing this offset rate. They don't do anything. They keep printing this offset rates. I don't know. We'll feel pain. There'll be pain. People are gonna feel it. I mean, the pain is really gonna come when they can't make the debt payments anymore. That's where the pain comes in. Because once you can't make your debt payments anymore, your life starts falling apart. All right. Hey, Jose, thanks again for the $1.99, man. How does the Fed measure our pain? Count, protest? Yeah, well, I don't think there's really any real measurement of the pain. I think, like, really, the Federal Reserve isn't going to be terribly concerned about, somebody coming to them and saying, hey, I lost my entire investment. And they're going to be like, oh, whatever. I really honestly feel that's the way it's going to be. The Fed will pivot or actually give a care once the unemployment starts to rise. Like, because they're mandated to do two things: low and stable prices of around 2% target, whatever that means, because we don't know, and full employment. And I mean, they've achieved that mandate. Like, that mandate has totally been met. So long as like those two things are being achieved, like the low and stable prices obviously miss the mark, but they have full employment, so they don't need to be accommodated, right? So as long as those two situations are the case, then they're not going to try and accommodate they're not going to do anything about it. They're just going to let it go. So the pain's really going to be unemployment. When unemployment rises and people start losing their jobs and start causing, there's a lot more bankruptcies and foreclosures and all that stuff. That's the pain that the Federal Reserve. If it has an actual number or mark or like an indicator somewhere out there, I don't know of that one. Like, I don't know if that's really out there. So okay, whoa, so many comments. Let's see here. We are emotions trapped and stored energy within matter. That's probably it. Yeah. I learned how to cull chickens this summer. Everyone should learn. Yeah, absolutely. The Cornish cross rocks, I mean, they are the fast-growing breeds, but they are really easy to raise. I mean, there is nothing to it. 2 months, right? From the time you get these chicks, feed and water, 2 months later, you got a 5-pound bird. Super easy to do. I mean, there's really nothing to it. And a lot of people say, well, 25 birds is a lot. It is a lot, especially if you're not used to raising birds. That's a lot of birds to try and raise. But you get 5 neighbors together and you each raise 5 birds, right? Over your 2 months, you just do that every 2 months, and you pretty much have a chicken every other week, right? That you'll have. Or you can do it every, say every 6 weeks or something like that. Get another batch of birds, and you can have this rotation where you pretty much have your own, have a chicken once a week that you raised. All right. Cornish crossrock chickens are nasty. Yeah, they are. They are nasty little birds, but they grow really fast, and depending on how you raise them and feed them, they're pretty decent. I mean, in my opinion, they were okay. Are they as good as the heritage breed? Not even. They're not even the same bird. Like, eating, like, a lot of people don't even know this. Like, the chickens that you get in the store are not like the chicken that you see out there running around in the barnyard, right? I mean, those chickens are heritage breeds, like the Rhode Island Reds and the Barred Rocks and all those other things. Those are heritage breed birds. Cornish cross rocks are a hybrid, right? And a lot of people are like, oh, those are the GMO, whatever. No, they're not, right? They're a hybrid bird. They developed them way back in the day, like during the World's Fair kind of stuff. It was like back in like World War II. They were trying to find the chicken breeders to come up with a breed of bird that was fast growing, that they could, supply to the people out there. It was not like this genetically modified organism, something that was lab grown. That's not the case that's going on there. It is a terminal breed, meaning that there's no way that they would exist on their own. So it is hybriding that does it. But they're just a fast growing breed. And unfortunately, like, they are meant for meat production. That's it. Like, if you allow them to continue to live beyond the 2 months, you're actually being cruel to them. That's inhumane. They grow so fast, so big, that they will literally pin themselves to the ground, and then they have these heart problems. So yeah, their life was developed for the purpose of creating meat for consumption. That is the whole purpose of it. Now, heritage breed birds, that's a much different thing. That's like an animal that you can almost have for a pet, right? These animals, they can live for many, many years, and people do have them as pets. Those birds, after about 6-7 months, they are just getting to a size that you may consider eating, right? And I tell you, they are tough as a boot when they get that. Even the young 6, 7 month old ones are not the tender little things that you get from like the store, like the Cornish cross rocks are. However, the meat is really good. And what I mean by really good is like it's closer to something more like a game bird, like something that you would actually go out and get out of the wild, right? It's something that doesn't even have the same body, the shape. Nothing about it is like the chicken that you would buy from the store. It is a completely different animal. And they are good. They in my opinion is way better than a Cornish cross rock is. But unfortunately, they're not exactly the fastest or easiest meat production that you want to go off of or go from. It's not like high. What am I trying to say? The feed to meat ratio isn't that great. But if you're going for egg production and meat, then then you can have something that's like a little bit better there. But yeah, as far as like meat production goes, Cornish cross rocks are really the only way to go about it. But if you want something that's actually like a decent bird, then you're gonna go for the heritage breeds. We end up talking about chickens on this channel a lot. I raised a lot of birds at one time in my life. I had a lot of, like, there was a time I had 32 laying hens and 50 Cornish cross rocks with another 50 chicks coming in. So yeah, there was a time I had close to 130 something birds on the property. Holy moly, that was a lot. All right. Your heritage birds are completely self-sustainable. Yes, they are. No input need at all. Cornish must be provided for. That's very true. That is absolutely true. Like you can literally have like the heritage breeds, if they're good foragers, you don't even really need to feed them. I mean, you can feed them some of the table scraps and stuff like that because the chickens will eat anything. You can feed them some of that and just let them just kind of free range around the yard, and you really don't have to feed them much at all. But I always fed my birds because if you give them good like egg layer feed, then you get better egg production out of them. At least that's what I found with it. So I would always buy them feed too. Nothing better than eating what you raise and grow. And that is so true. I love like all the farm raised stuff. Like the chicken is way better. The beef is super better. I mean, everything is so much better. But what I found, the pork is like something completely like something completely different. Pork from the store is like this stinky, nasty stuff. After you have had farm raised pork, it's not the same thing. And it took me a long time because my buddy who raised the pigs, he moved away. But it took me a while to actually be able to enjoy like a pork chop from the store. Like I had a hard time eating it. Like even now still I kind of get a little cautious when I go into it. But yeah, it is like raising pigs. Farm raised pigs are so much better than the store bought, like by a million better, a million times. I'm more of a gardener. Yeah, and my wife, she's more of a gardener too. Like we definitely, I mean, I did raise a lot of birds and we would trade some of those birds for stuff, but the variety that my wife grew out of the garden was just incredible. She did really, really well in a small amount of space. Oh, and that was something I was going to bring up. I went and looked it up too. Cantillon was talking about how much square footage that the individual needed to live off of, right? So basically, we had all these people who were farmers or farming and, providing food for everybody else out there. One of the things you needed to do was farm enough food for yourself. And now what I had mentioned is like how much land that you would need in order to garden and to produce enough food for yourself. Now, I don't know if there's anybody out there who actually does that, like can stay on their property, produce all the food that they need right on their property. That would be pretty cool. I don't think there's anybody who can really do that. But with a small space, and I'm talking not a very big space at all, like 100 square feet. I think that's what Cantillon was talking about in his essay, was like what was it? He actually brought it down. It was 4 people needed 450 square feet or something like that. So I just basically thought it down to 100 square foot per person, which is what you would need in order to produce the food that you would need to live. And again, like a lot of people are shaking their heads saying not possible. I disagree. I think it is possible, and I think that if you were really good and understood how to produce the most food off of a small piece of land, you had good, nutrients in the soils and stuff like that, and you took good care of it, I think you could produce enough food off of something as small as 100 square feet. Especially if you were traded for the things that you did need, because there's no way that you could produce everything that you needed yourself. All right. I can't eat fresh meat anymore. Let's start a deflation cult, okay? We are just eating the earth via an animal. Oh yeah, actually pig pork chop, amazing. Yeah, I had rats, but the 22 long rifle has dispatched 16 in the last 2 years. Haven't seen one lately. Yeah. Gardening is fun and easy. It sure is. Sheep are much easier than goats all day long. Yeah, I agree. I would agree that sheep are much easier than goats. Goats are kind of stubborn and, seem to get into everything. But I don't like sheep. I'm not a fan of mutton. Like, I've had lamb chops and all the other stuff, and it's okay, but I'm not a big fan of that one. So I don't know if I would like raise that for meat myself. Why buy from local pig farmer? I don't eat meat, but I freeze dry for family. Oh, we buy, not why. We buy. Yeah, right on. That's the way to go. Like, if you can buy local from with anything, whether it's whether it's pig or chicken or beef or vegetables or whatever you can get, the closer you can get to the source, the better. Like, I would love to know the name of everybody who has grown my food. Like, if I could say, Joe grew that and, Steve raised that and whatever. Like, if I could go through and just name off everybody who grew my food, that would be like awesome for me. I would feel much better about the things I ate if I could do that. Is sight an emotion? I guess not. Do you like Portland? Not particularly like Portland, but I would have to say the last few times I was there, things were a lot cleaner than I had experienced over the couple of years going up there. But the last few times it was pleasant. It was a lot cleaner. So in that sense, yeah, I was pretty happy with it. Some of the areas of Portland are pretty hammered, especially like after the riots and protests and all the other crap that was going on up there. There was a lot of areas that were hit pretty hard, but for the most part, Portland is a friendly place. Like, the people are nice. Like, they're not rude or anything. Like, it's not like that kind of, crappy place to be. And then again, for like the most part, the place is fairly cleaned up. I mean, obviously there's some areas that are hammered, but it's doing a lot better. So I would say I was happier with Portland the last time I was there than I had been the previous times, but I'm not a big fan of Portland. Oh, wow, look at all these comments. My gosh, you guys are so awesome here. All right. What do you think of old coin collecting as a way of creating wealth? Okay, I'm a coin collector. I like collecting coins, but I'm not like the numismatic. Like, I got all the fancy coins and graded coins and stuff like that. So as far as like collecting coins for the future wealth, I'm not into it. I don't do it. I do collect coins because I really like the collection of them, and I'm just into history and stuff like that. So I like having coins for that reason. But when I think about like collection purposes, like you have a rare coin. Like, say you got like, I don't know, some silver coin from back in the day. It's really rare. And you have it graded, and you find another coin out there that's sold for, $1,600 or something like that. So now you have this coin that is worth $1,600. You want to put a $1,600 price tag on it. It's even graded, so you have an example of it, of another graded coin that's sold for that price. Now, you need to find a buyer for it. Okay, so this is where it comes in. Like, if you are a big-time collector and you understand the coin collecting game, you're not going to have any problems. You'll find a buyer right now. But if you're not in that game, like you don't know other buyers out there, you don't have a network built up, then it might be kind of difficult to find a buyer for your $1,600 coin, unless you put it out there on the internet or something. So when I think about like collecting coins for wealth purposes, I I'm not into it. Not for that side. Like I go for weight value, how many ounces, not what they are, but how many. That's kind of where I move towards as far as like my wealth kind of thing, right? But even still, I just buy silver for an insurance policy. I'm not doing it for a wealth builder. To me, if you're going to try and build wealth inside of the metals, then it's going to be like in mining or something like that, like buying into mining shares or something of that nature. But that being said, there is a hell of a lot more money to be made collecting, in the coin collecting, than it is in like the weight value, because we already know from premiums and stuff like that, it's difficult to buy silver at a decent price and then turn around and sell it for a decent price. But when it comes to coin collecting, that's a little bit different story. You might be able to pick up a rare coin, then have it graded, and then sell that graded coin for a heck of a profit. But you really kind of have to know what you're doing inside of that. Penny varieties. There's people out there, there's varieties of pennies out there that people will pay you like $10 just for a particular variety. It doesn't even have to be that great of a shape, or as far as grading or anything like that. It just has to be one of the varieties. And what I mean by that is like pennies, especially like the older copper pennies, and not even older ones, even newer ones, there's errors that happen within them. And so sets of coins were produced with a particular variety, like with a defect or a something going on with like the way it was minted. And then those particular coins carry a premium. So, you're going through all these old copper coins, you can pull out this 1970 whatever it is, and it's a variety something. Like, I mean, you'd have to look up these varieties in order to know what they are. But if you recognize what they are, know what they are, then you might be able to find buyers for those things. And so here you got a penny that you turn into $10. That's a pretty good way to collect coins and sell them, old coins. But again, like, you kind of have to know what you're doing, and then sit there and like go through these coins and then be able to pick up a coin and know what variety that you're looking for within those years and be able to identify that variety on that coin. And like, again, that's a hobby that somebody has to really focus in on and take part in. All right. What time is it? 1:51 minutes, or an hour and 51 minutes into this. So I'm going to give it like another 8 minutes here, guys, and then I'm going to head home because that's a 2-hour live stream, and I think that might be enough for us tonight, right? Okay. No 1099s with numismatics. What is numismatics? Okay, numismatic. So you have coins of weight value, and then you got coins of numismatic, right? So the numismatic value is like a coin that's beyond worth the face value or the weight value of it. I think that's probably the simplest way to understand it. I prefer hot dogs. Hot dogs are good. I like Nathan's Famous, and I like the Hebrew Nationals. Like, those two hot dogs, I think those ones are awesome. They're really good. Let's see here. Yui, what's your personal prediction of business closures due to the dismal Christmas sales? I think a lot of the small businesses you're going to find are going to, like, take a look at what's happening in the trucking industry right now. That's because there's not enough stuff going for the Christmas season. Okay, so it starts in trucking. Where's it going to go to next? Right? If trucking faces it, then it's going to be retail stores, then it's going to be corporations. It's going to be going on from there, right? So it starts like with the trucking industry. Well, I started in manufacturing, then it goes to the trucking industry, then it moves into like the mom and pop, then into the retail, and then on from there. So right now we're seeing the trucking businesses going bankrupt. I mean, there's plenty of them. Just check out the video that I put out earlier today, and there's like, I think I had 2 articles of 2 different companies in there that are facing like serious issues from the overexpansion that they had done during the pandemic. And that's the same thing that's going to start filtering throughout the rest of the economy. Same thing that happened in lumber, right? I mean, there was this huge inventory depletion that had taken place prior to the pandemic. Then when the pandemic kicked in, there was even more inventory depletions because of the mill lockdowns. Then there was this whatever, like, gazebos and raised garden beds and all that other stuff. And then they zapped out the inventory, right? So now there was no inventory that was left, and there was nothing that was going into production. Prices shot through the roof, right? Well, then the mills went into overdrive trying to produce as much lumber as they could while the prices were up as high as they did. And then what do we have happen? We had it crash from 1,700 all the way down to 400 per thousand, right? So these wild swings within the industry, they're still going. Like, this isn't coming to an end. Like, I mean, it is going to come to an end at some point, but the volatility within the supply chain is still quite extreme, and it's going to continue to get extreme, especially if you have things like trucking companies go out of business, because once it starts flipping to the other side, there's not going to be any truckers in business to expand their business to move the freight through the country again. That's what's going to end up happening. I mean, it's going to take years down the road, but we're going to see it. See the same thing happen in food. When food prices are shooting up because there wasn't enough food produced, then people are going to start investing into farms and producing food because they're going to want to take advantage of those high prices. And what's going to end up happening is you're going to have an overabundance of food come in, and then you're going to have to start subsidizing the farmers, or else they're going to go out of business. And it's the same thing. It's going to take years to do it, but it's the same. It's just cycles through. You just think about it. It's cause and effects. It's like, from one extreme to the other. All right. 5 more minutes, guys. Hey, UE, have you mentioned cross-laminated timber? STRL makes that product. Hey, right on. I got to write that down, man. I've been waiting to find somebody who would give me... I'll remember. STRL. All right, remember that. All right, makes this product. The stock has done really well in this bear market, and especially the past 3 months. Maybe something big coming for lumber. Hey, thank you very much, Lazy Fugazi. I really appreciate that. Now I knew there's a lot of cross-laminated timber industries out there, or companies, but I hadn't found one that was like investment worthy yet, right? Because I'm not an investor. I don't even know how to pick it like a proper investing stock or anything like that. That's not me. That's not what I do. There's other people out there who really understand this game, and I'm not saying that Lazy Fugazi knows the game, but was able to pull this one out and make that a suggestion. So STRL, what do I think about okay, that's the stock ticker, I'm assuming. What do I think about the cross-laminated timber industry? I love the idea of the cross-laminated timber industry. And it's not so much that I love it for that it's like, the next greatest thing for the product. I just think it's going to end up taking... I really feel with the push for green products and the carbon footprint, all that crap, like, I'm not either here nor there on any of that stuff. All I know is that there's plenty of people out there who are pushing for that agenda to take place, right? So if that is the case, then cross-laminated timbers are going to be part of that green building products. And if they are going to be part of that green building products, then that's the place that I'm going to invest into. Now, when it comes to building with cross-laminated timber, I'm for it. Like, I like the idea behind it all. Building high-rises out of wood. Now, the initial thought about like rot, fires, seismics, whatever, all that stuff about it, they've been working on this product for a long time, and they figured out all those issues. Right? They found that fires really don't take place within these cross-laminated timber buildings because the surface gets charred, but then it doesn't penetrate into the wood itself. And so there are like a lot of people who have these concerns about like major fires in these cross-laminated timber built buildings, but that's not the case. They're very like low fire, or have a, I guess, high fire resistance. There we go. Seismic wise, apparently they perform much better than concrete and steel does. Like, they can actually move and shift with the building. As far as bug control, delamination, stuff like that, they've gotten all those things taken care of. Like, they figured out the glues, they figured out the infestation from bugs and stuff like that. They figured those things out. Have they had issues with them? Yeah, they have. Like, that's the reason why the industry hasn't blown up into like full-on use right now, is because you have to work through these issues. Part of it was delamination, like putting, too much weight on these things or whatever, and didn't have it engineered properly. All that stuff is getting figured out. right? And so here in the next 10, 15 years, as the demand for low carbon intrusiveness or whatever, the green products, this is going to be one that is going to be pushed. I mean, cross-laminated timbers are going to be the common building practice for hospitals and schools and all these commercial facilities, even residential homes. I could see it happening with. I think it's going to be a big deal. And in fact, I'm going to try and get another guy from a mill who deals in cross-laminated timbers. Hopefully, I'm going to get him on for an interview, and we'll, talk about this particular product in a little bit more depth, so you have a better understanding of it. But yeah, I'm a big fan of cross-laminated timbers. Alrighty, guys. I'm going to do one more question, then I'm going to head on home. I really appreciate you all hanging out with me for the last 2 hours. 289 of you, 259 thumbs up. All the supportive super chats, 800, well, what was 800? Yeah, like $87.90 worth of super chats. Thank you guys so much for doing that. I can't thank you enough for it. Okay. Carbon is good. Earth needs carbon. Yeah, I do. I'm not a carbon, like all that stuff. I'm not into any of that. That's for somebody else to worry about. All I know is that there's enough talk out there, and there's enough politicians who are pushing that agenda, that if that's going to be what's taking place, I mean, if they're going to do that, I'm gonna try and make money off of it. Like, I mean, I don't really care about pushing these green products. I mean, I'm not like saying, hey, this is the greatest thing in the world, but if they're gonna push people into that, well, then I'm gonna go and make money at it. I mean, why not, right? All right, carbon is just part of the earth. It's not new. No, you're right. All right. Thanks, UE. Yeah, no problem, guys. You all have been great. Fed stopped producing pennies last year. Those in circulation are the last of them. It's not the Fed, it's the Mint. I'm not trying to be a dick or anything like that. I'm just saying it's not the Federal Reserve who makes coins, it's the Mint. Let's see here. I think environmental pollution is worse than CO2 emissions. Thanks, Simon, and everyone here in the chat. Well, thank you, All Nighter. Thank you for being here. You guys are super awesome. All right, here we go. Yui, when do you see yourself retiring? I don't know. That's a good question. Like, are you thinking like quitting my job and just kind of doing UE stuff full time? Because I don't ever see myself retiring from work. Like, I need work. I need something in my life that I can focus in on and do every day. It's one of the reasons why I don't give up working for my day job, is because I like to get up and go to work. Like, I mean, I don't like doing it every day, but I like having something in my life that does that for me. Vacations are terrible on me. Like, I don't want to go back to work after vacations. It just makes me lazy. I'd rather work right through my vacation. That way I go back to work ready to go. I mean, even now, like, every day I try to do something for the channel, whether it's putting out a video or trying to make contact or trying to just do some research or something. I don't think I can retire. I don't think retiring is in me. It's not something that, like, it's not something I look forward to or anything like that. Like, there's a lot of people who, like, man, I can't wait till I retire and I'm sitting in, whatever Florida beach or something like that. Like, I don't, like, I do see myself enjoying time, in the future and stuff like that. But as far as retiring from work, I don't think I'll do it. I think I'll work every day forever. I don't consume crap, so my bills are low. Yeah, there you go. All right, same. People work 2 days for bills, 3 days for their ego. Yeah. Never stop working. That's it, man. Okay, guys. Thank you, everybody, for hanging out with me. I really appreciate the time that you spend with me. We were 2 hours into this. 281 of you sitting here on the live stream. I think we had close to 350 or so at one point. That was really awesome that that many of you want to join in and hang out and have this discussion with us. All right. I'm going to go home. Love you guys.